Hi peeps, and welcome back to the channel. So I just want to mention that in the last video I didn't say peeps, I said guys. So Owen, who watches my videos and he gives me a row if I don't say peeps, I'm really sorry. Alright, so on today's video I'm going to be following on from your introduction to probation year, what do you need to know, or your NQT year as they are known in England. Basically, it's the year after you've come out of university. So this is part 2, following on from the last video. Just to highlight who I am, my name is Julie. I taught a primary 4 class last year. That was my probation year. I'm going into year 2 of my teaching, which I'm very excited about. So that's sort of where I'm coming from. So I am giving you the tips and tricks that I wish I'd known. If I was to do it all over again, these are the things that I wish I knew and I think would be useful for you guys. So just going back to the last video, just to highlight a couple of things that I maybe got a bit wrong. I knew that it was Michael, but it was Michael Linson who wrote the Classroom Management Secret. So if you're looking for that, Michael Linson, Classroom Management Secret. And Michael Matera, the sort of the CPD stuff that you'd be doing is on hashtag Hive Summit. Hive Summit, so HIVSUMMIT. And if you look at that hashtag, then you will find the things from last year, but you'll also see him start to gain the traction for this year. All right, so in this video, we're going to be talking about what would I teach. We're going to be talking about, what are we going to be teaching? What are you going to be doing after the summer holidays? If you're anything like me, I was freaking out. When we go out to placement, it's largely driven by the teacher, by your E's and O's, your benchmarks. Yes, we're following the curriculum. Yes, we're going to be covering these experiences and outcomes. That's the E's and O's, and the benchmarks. But where do I start? I was majorly freaking out at that point in time, so maybe you are too. How do you feel about it? Let me know in the comments. It's now all on you, and that's a bit of a scary thing. So hopefully some of this will let you know exactly where you're going to go. I'm going to be covering things like class charters, building relationships, dealing with transitions, what to do in the first 2 weeks, and a couple of numeracy top tips. So if that is your bag and you're interested in that, then continue on and we'll have a good time. Enjoy the ride. Okay, so the other thing, I've just itched my nose and I realised that, in the last video, when I watched it back, do watch yourself back. But I did a lot of itching my nose. I also realised that my hair was all over the place. This is what happens when you cut your own hair and it's 6-7 weeks down the line and you're too frightened to cut it again, in case you really muck it up because you got away with it last time. I was also look at my skin, all those kind of things. But you know what, guys? One of the reasons that I put these up, and maybe I'm looking a little bit worse for wear, or I don't look pristine. One is I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up anyway, regardless of what I look like, because you show up for your kids. And we don't all look pristine, and we don't all look pristine all the time. The other thing is that if I didn't, that's what stops me from getting the content out to you. And what's important is for you to have the content. Not really how I look, although I would like it if I looked a little bit more presentable sometimes. But that's by the by. So just if you wondered, does she know that her skin looks really bad? Does she know that her hair is crazy? I do. But hey, we'll we'll just continue on with that and, you know, accept and love each other as we are. Okay. So, as I said, before in placement, it was largely directed by the teacher, what they had done before, what they were, you know, sort of encouraging you to do in the lessons, whether it was literacy or numeracy, and then a mixture of both, and an IDL stroke topic work. But now you've got to decide, well, where do I start? And what I would do is, I remember my very first day with the kids and going out to the lines and greeting them at the lines, and I'm like, I'm so excited, I'm so excited. But as they came in, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so nervous. And this is where the building relationships part comes in. Because one of the first things I said to them, I got them all sat down and I said, welcome to Primary 4. I'm delighted to have you, to be your teacher. I am so excited. You guys are going to be the absolute best. You know, I've already been told that you guys are just the best kids in the school. I am so super lucky. But do you know what? I'm really nervous too. Is there anyone else that feels like that? Oh, hands just shot right up. And they were nervous. And for me, it was really important to open that side up to me, you know, be more human. There are times when it is a good idea to open up your personal feelings, and there's times obviously when, you know, nobody needs to know that, okay? But these are one of those times that I think that it is appropriate, and it actually sets your children at ease when you admit that you are nervous too, and you are super excited and you are delighted, but it doesn't stop you being a little bit nervous, and that is okay. So when I did that, we managed to get a great discussion going on, you know, about what we were excited about, what we were most looking forward to, what we expected, and that led us really nicely onto your classroom charter. So you've got your children's rights to education. So yes, you've got your rights, but also you've got your responsibilities. Now these do not go hand in hand. Like, if you're all silent and nobody says a word all the time, that's your responsibility, then you've got a right to have an education. Nope, ridiculous anyway. But it's also the fact that when you put the responsibilities and rights together like that, then they feel like, well, I'm only going to get that right if I am responsible with it. And to a certain degree, like, you know, if everybody's talking, they're not actually going to be getting an education because they're not, we're not able to hear each other. But that's on classroom management. That's not because of their responsibility. It's you know, it is a very separate thing. So your classroom charter is going to be based on, you know, things like being kind, being safe. It's a very co-creative process. So they are going to be saying the things that they expect of you. Okay, now you might need to lead them down. For example, you might want them to think about the environment that they're in. You know, if, especially in this sort of pandemic environment, they're going to want to make sure that actually you're doing your best and whatever you can to make the class safe, to make sure that all your desks are clear so that it can have that deep clean every day, to make sure that you are cleaning the desks and making sure that everything's tidy, everything is organized, there's not paraphernalia lying about that, you know, other children can touch, and ensuring that, well, certainly my understanding is that each individual child will have their own pack, so there's not the cross contamination. yeah, so they're going to be expecting a lot of you, and part of that might come up in terms of the response of the pandemic, and go, right, well, you know, you're going to keep the classroom organized, you're going to keep the energy and the motivation up. Oh my gosh, the sun's just come out. Ooh, lovely. You're going to keep the motivation up so that everybody's motivated to learn, you know, being honest, helping others, no bullying, no being mean, being kind. I try to keep the no's out and keep the positive, like being kind and being safe. Those kind of things, and it will naturally progress when you're having that discussion as to how can we make the best classroom ever. They will have done class charters before, which makes it easier. And also the other thing that I would say is, oh, excuse me, when you're thinking about what am I going to teach them, if you can have a conversation with the teacher before, now you will have, it's extremely likely that you will have in-service days before you actually start, where all of the teachers will be in. So it's that opportunity that hopefully you will get, if you do not have it beforehand, that you will get to speak to the classroom teacher before. This gives you an insight to like what they have done, what stages they are at, their assessments of the children, and then that gives you a very good starting point. Now, that starting point is actually going to probably come a couple of weeks down the line, because there's going to be 2 weeks roughly blocked off where you're building those relationships that I've talked about. You're implementing your classroom behaviour, you're implementing your classroom charter, and you're doing other things that I'll be talking about in a minute. But before I do, one of the things that I made really quite clear, I talked a little bit about it in behaviour management strategies. And the reason why I go on about this is this is probably the part where people are most nervous. You know, how am I going to make sure that I manage the children enough to have the ability to learn? So there's a couple of things, strategies that I use that worked really well. I can't even remember the clap, it's been so long. Is it something like that? And when I use that kind of tactic, they have heard it so much. So remember, I was teaching primary 4, and they'd heard it so many times that they almost started to switch off to it. I heard it with other teachers when they came in. They're using the clap and they're still talk. The attention is not on you. So when you clap to explain, when you're clapping like that, you're hoping for them to repeat the clap and for them to be paying attention. Now, what often happened was, yeah, I know, what were you doing in the summer? And they'd hear, and yeah, I know. Yeah, I think so. And they would just keep talking like this. Yeah, no, have you got a brown pencil as well? Yeah, and then you'd hear it again, and you'd go, and it would take maybe 5 times, and that might be the case where, and that's okay for you, right? For me, I was like, no, I don't want this transition to take as long. I want it to sort of break down. Whoa, that is a big, strong sun. Not that I'm not appreciative of you, I am. But what I found really, really successful was actually I had Chinese bells. So the little Chinese cymbals, and then they're about this size, they're on a string, and they just cling together and go bing. And they make this most wonderful resonating noise. So when I did that, and I explained to them, when you hear the sound, this sound, what I'm looking for is for your attention. That's where your mouths are closed, your eyes are on me, your ears are listening. Okay, so when I did that, almost immediately, and I find this all the way through the year, I use different strategies, you know, to mix it up. Sometimes I clap, sometimes I use the bell, sometimes I use something else that I'll tell you about in a minute. Sometimes I would just say, you know, primary 4, okay, 1, 2, 3, look at me, those kind of things. But the other strategy I used, which was really good, I taught them a little song, a little warm-up song in music, and you might have heard it, but it goes like this. Bella mama, hey. Bella mama, hey. Bella mama, bella mama, bella mama, bella mama, bella mama, bella mama, yay. Very short little song, okay? I taught them that in music, so everybody was singing, oh, lovely, lovely, lovely. All right, so next time when the levels were getting too much, I felt that not everyone was on task and they needed to be on task, or perhaps that it was, you know, we're doing something else, I would like you to pay attention. Then extremely quietly, and I mean it was this quiet, when you can imagine the rabble going on in the background, and I would just go, Bella mama, eh. Someone would catch me and they'd start singing with me, Bella mama, eh. And then more people, Bella mama, Bella mama, Bella mama, Bella mama. By the time we got to that part, everybody in the class would finish off with Bella mama, yeah. And it was just like, it was an amazing, you know, tool. It was so useful because, one, everybody just got that little bit to stop. Two, they were all singing together like little angels. Honestly, there were those primary 4s, their voices were, oh, beautiful. And it just, naturally singing just resonates this amazing feeling in you anyway. So actually having that and then just stopping and being together, feeling like we were joined together in a combined cause was really, really good. So it just settled them all right down, which was really, it was such an effective tool. And I really enjoy doing that. So try that out. Let me know how it goes, you know, whether it's the singing, whether it's the bells. And there's lots of different things if you don't feel confident with singing, but I just particularly loved it. So that's really good for transitions. So moving on, in your first 2 weeks, as promised, what I did was we did our tray labels. We created birthday cards so that, you know, we had 33 birthday cards and every time that it was someone's birthday, they could pick out the birthday card and they got a little birthday card from the class in general, which was really cute. But I also did a mini project. Now in this mini project, because I was primary 7, I chose Roald Dahl. So I chose George's Marvelous Medicine. If you are going up the school, or even in middle school, Roald Dahl, David Williams, those kind of books. But up the school, you can go with David Williams, or you can go with Michael Morpurgo. I was about to say Michael Rosen, different person altogether. So Michael Morpurgo books I've heard are very, very good. People use wonder a lot, very powerful messages in there. And going down the school, then you can again use the simpler Roald Dahl books like The Enormous Crocodile or Julia Donaldson books, maybe some Ladybird books, Phileas Fogg, those kind of things that you're able to tell the story and build it up over a couple of weeks. Now basically you use that as a hook, you know, to build on different activities. Things like maybe a book cover. You might want to cover up the book cover at first, read the first part of it, and then go, well, what do you think the book cover should look like? What does it look like? This gives them a great, it's a great task to sort of run wild with their imagination, and really think about, titles, capital letters, the illustrator and the author at the bottom, those kind of things that you're weaving into that little lesson. The other thing, maybe you might want them to go through character descriptions. You're going to go through a plan, detail, if they're doing character descriptions. For me, you're thinking about, you really want to visualize what they look like. So maybe you're going to say, what does their face look like? What do their clothes look like? And maybe, if, depending on the age and stage, you might want to investigate what their behaviors are like, so like maybe mean, and you might want to get in alliteration. You might want to get into lots of adjectives in there, leveling up in your words, rather than using wild words rather than boring words. So yeah, having something like that and having the character description gives you an amazing assessment of their writing, their fine motor skills, their capitalization and punctuation. You won't always go on about capitalization and punctuation. Perhaps their, if I've not already said it, their formation of words, their ability to, as I said, up-level those words, gives you a great assessment of that. The same with prediction. Now, prediction can come in the form of like a cartoon, or drawings that you're going to do, or indeed another written piece. So you can absolutely do those predictions as well. Again, you're going to break it down into a plan. So that's going to be sort of 2 lessons. Your plan first, where you're thinking about, you're having your discussion, what do they look like? And you're thinking about, well, if you're saying to me they've got eyes, nose and 2 ears and a mouth, what do I, how can I distinguish them from somebody else? Oh, they've got brown eyes, they've got sticky out ears, they've got thin lips, those kind of things. And they're going to really sort of, what they produce is fantastic. It also allows you to, I know I'm sitting in the dark a bit here. It's just because the sun's right there and then it's going all funny. So I'm sorry. Yeah, so it gives you a really good assessment of what their capabilities are. Also, another little thing is you could do creation of scenery. Again, you're going to have to look at what the regulations are at that time, what you can and cannot do, but whether they need to maybe draw the scenery, whether they can use paints, whether they can use, collages, work together. I don't know what that will be like. But then if you create scenery, you can create a puppet show, you can insert IT, get some filmmaking going on. Like, there's so many things that you can do in this tiny little mini project in those first 2 weeks. And it gives you a big, a sigh of relief, because you don't have to get right in there and hammer them with the curriculum. It comes as a very, a very gradual process that is comfortable for you and comfortable for them as well. It also gives you an idea of grouping, what works well, who works well. Perhaps it's the case where they were a composite class and now they're a straight class. Or the opposite way around. Maybe there's new people that have entered in the class, so the combinations we have to get right. What worked last year doesn't work this year. Those kind of things. So that's it's a great place to get good assessments in a lot of things. Okay, so that's what I would suggest. I would do this mini project. I'm just looking at anything else that I've got in my notes. Yep, that's fine. Oh, and the other thing, the last thing I want to talk about is just a couple of numeracy top tips. So when I looked at the numeracy, I thought, where am I actually going to start with this? And I would recommend that you start at place value. So place value with your hundreds, tens and units, or thousands, tens and units, getting them really to have a chat about what do they know. What do they know? Maybe doing some KWL grids. What do they know? What do they want to know? And what have they learned? So that will give you a good idea of what they think they know. Obviously, that discussion with the previous year's teacher will help you know what they've done and what they've covered and what they haven't covered. But what they've covered and what they haven't covered does not necessarily equate to what they know. So sometimes if maybe they've covered add the addition of 2 3-digit numbers, or subtraction or multiplication, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're all confident in it. So some of it you might have to go in again. But it lets you know, if you start with place value, it lets you know, do they know the 10ness of 10? Do they know their numbers up to 100, up to 50, up to 100? Do they know multiplication, division, subtraction and addition? Do they know decimalization? Do they know negative numbers? Those kind of things. It's all held within place number, and actually will help you really span out on the rest of it. The other thing I wanted to mention, and this was just a little light bulb moment that I got later on in the year when I did fractions. I love a bit of fractions. And so I did fractions, and then straight after it, I did the topic of time. See, that's the clouds coming over so you can actually see me. I did the topic of time, and having done the fractions really helped me with doing the topic of time, because they understood that when a circle is halved, it's straight up and down in the middle, and they got to the half past. And then again with the quarters, halved and then quartered, it just made sense. As a concept, time's pretty hard. As you begin to look more and more into it, it's like those times when you look at a word and you look at a word, or you say a word so much and then it starts to sound funny. Time is exactly the same thing. It's a very interesting concept. And actually, if you look at Dave Allen, if you haven't seen the sketch on Dave Allen, I think it's Teaching the Time, something like that. It does have sweary words in it, so little caveat there. But it's very, very funny. And yeah, when you think about it like that, it's quite unusual. Anyway, time follows fractions very, very well. And that was a little light bulb moment. So hopefully this has helped. If you think that it has, please leave a comment in the comments below. If you have any questions, also please also share as much as you can, just to get the message and the content out there to people that may need it. Yeah, so if you can do that, if you like, subscribe, I would be delighted by that. Guys, have a great day, and don't forget to be the best you can be. Bye.